What's going on, everyone? So we have some exciting news to talk about in relation to Twilight of the Republic. We have some brand new cards that were spoiled, as well as some images that were posted over the past couple days, and we're going to be diving even more deep into that to answer some questions about timeline and what kind of focus this set has besides just the Clone Wars, which, well, we know in general based off of our initial spoilers with like Ahsoka and Grievous. I've had people ask about kind of what this encompasses, so we'll be diving into that a little bit today. And, well, I will say, in terms of spoilers, guys, there is one card in particular that I am extremely excited about. So stay tuned for that one. But let's dive in and talk about this. Real quick, thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to get direct access to me, chat with me, hang out, whatever it is, be sure to check that down below. Let's work our way back, starting off with some of the older posted images. This is one of the older images that we saw. For those of you that don't know any of these, don't worry, I'll be chatting through all the different scenes, because a lot of this stuff in terms of timeline with Twilight Republic is going to be coming from the Clone Wars series, at least so far. In fact, Ahsoka and Grievous looks like that depiction of them, well, Ahsoka specifically, because, well, she's not really seen in any other media besides the TV series, but the Grievous as well seems to be coming from the Clone Wars series. And this image is actually of Waxer and Boyle, and this Twi'lek is Numa. This is an episode where they were on Ryloth, and, well, basically the Republic was trying to break the Separatists free from Ryloth. So we're going to see a lot of images and scenes and cards from the Clone Wars series specifically. However, as we go forward, you'll notice various different areas of this. This battle droid image looks to be from the assault on Dathomir, so we might see some Night Sisters alongside this when we're looking at Twilight Republic. For those of you that don't know what the Night Sisters are, we saw a little bit of the Night Sisters from the very, very recent TV series. I'm not going to spoil too much about that with Morgan Elspeth, but the original kind of incarnation of the Night Sisters was from the Clone Wars TV series, and they were very, very prevalent. So we could see Mother Talzin, we could see Old Daka as well. And as we go forward, we're starting to see more and more images for the Clone Wars. We have one from, well, Satine, or from Satine's little throne here in Mandalore. Definitely going to see a Satine card, it looks like. And we also have, well, Ahsoka defending the younglings that are actually building their lightsabers. So this was all about a Trandoshan slavers episode. So we could see all manner of different series or scenes / episode themes from the Clone Wars. But you notice all four of these images that I talked about were all from the Clone Wars series. So obviously they're focusing in on the Clone Wars series. However, this image and, well, another image, or a card I should say, that they already revealed definitely looks like they're going to be referring all the way back to episode 1 as well. Not just that intermediate period, and potentially even episode 3, because that also includes the Clone Wars, but episode 2 and episode 3, that's like the peak of the Clone Wars. And in episode 3, that's where the Clone Wars really just ended. However, episode 1 kind of laid the groundwork for the Clone Wars, and I'm not surprised to see at least a little bit of Palpatine and Darth Maul in this image. And as I mentioned earlier, we've already seen a Darth Maul card with a convention exclusive. So seeing this is a really important card because we have Maul right now, and it's in like the banner of Shadows of the Galaxy. But Maul is the crime lord version of Maul that we see much later on in the Clone Wars series, and, well, even further into the earlier stages of the Empire building. But this version is Darth Maul, and this was before all that, and this comes from episode 1. So seeing this type of Maul here really indicates that we are very likely to see some content from episode 1. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Qui-Gon Jinn, wouldn't be surprised to see Jar Jar Binks, as many people had questions about that. So this new series, or this new set, is definitely focusing on Clone Wars, but honestly, it looks like that we're going to be seeing cards spanning from basically the prequel era of Star Wars, not just the Clone Wars specialty that it seems to be initially looking like. Now, there is a chance that we could see something similar to what set 1 was like, and even in some cases set 2, where you're having all these Rebel and Empire cards, and then you have like a Mace Windu, and then you have Vigilance, where Obi-Wan and Anakin are shown defending Padme, from the worms and the bounty hunter. Those types of cards could be placed in set 3 as well, where you have a Clone Wars focus, but then we have some set or episode 1's kind of thrown in there with the expectation that we will have a full set on the earlier stages of the movies. That could be a possibility, but I don't know if they would separate it like that, because I don't even know if you could really get enough content just from episode 1 to make a good enough set, as mainly the Star Wars media hones in, at least the older version of Star Wars media hones in on like that time period from episode 2 all the way from, you know, Luke challenging the Emperor at the end. That is like the major portion of Star Wars content. Of course, you have some additionals outside of that, where Shadows of the Galaxy comes in with like the Mandalorian and stuff, but I'm not sure if there's enough from just episode 1. So I would expect a lot of cards from episode 1 in this new set. But as I mentioned, we have some actual cards to talk about today. So let's swap on over to one of the most sick looking cards I have seen in this game so far. And this one's a little bit tricky. So we're going to talk about this one in depth here. So we have Consolidation of Power. It's a 6 resource event with command villainy as its aspects. And it says, choose any number of friendly units. You may play a unit from your hand if its cost is less than or equal to the combined power of the chosen units for free, then defeat the chosen units. So essentially, this is kind of like a souped up exploit on a card. So you use this as well as the other unit in your hand, and this essentially gives that unit exploit. And what I mean by this is you're essentially sacrificing the units on the battlefield in exchange for resource cost reduction on your whatever unit you have in play or in your hand. Now, remember, you must reach that total amount of cost. So let's say you have a finalizer in hand. It's 11 cost unit. You can't just go ahead and play Consolidation of Power. And let's say you have, I don't know, 8 resources total. So you have 2 left over. You can't Consolidation of Power, sack 9 power worth of units, which would be 9 resources essentially for a unit, and then pay the extra 2 in difference. You must go ahead and play a unit that costs less than or equal to the combined power of the chosen units. So you must reach that total. So if you want to play a finalizer, you need 11 power worth of units. Now, initially, when you look at this card, you're thinking, okay, if I play this right now, there is almost no chance that I will get enough power on the board while also wanting to sack all that power or defeat all those units to play something even bigger. Think about it this way. Let's say you're playing Han Blue, which plays a lot of high-powered units, and you're kind of playing a long curve. And let's say you go ahead and play an Obi-Wan, and then you play like a Luke Skywalker, and you have a Han Solo flip, and suddenly you have like 9 power, assuming you weren't going to play, or let's say this was in Heroism, for example, assuming you're not going to play the aspect cost increase. You play this for 6. You sack Han Solo, you sack Luke. Let's say you have like an A-Wing left over. That has a total of 10 power. Think about kind of what you could play for 10 resources, and it's really not all that impressive. You could play like a Home 1, right? Let's say you're playing, well, more likely, since it's a villainy card, right? Vader Green, or some other controlling deck. Like let's say you're playing Kira Green, and you want to get down an Avenger. You're going to need a ton of power in order to play that Avenger. This isn't really going to be the case that you can actually go ahead and take advantage of that. If you kind of think about like best case scenario with this card, you're looking at, let's say, again, you're playing Kira Green and you're trying to drop an Avenger into play. Remember, Avenger is a 9-costed space unit, or 9-cost space unit. So let's say you play a Child Sin and you put the full shebang on him and he's a 6/6. Then you're able to, let's say, flip Kira the following turn. Okay, you have 10 power, you sack Kira, and then you sack Child Sin, and you have a turn 5. Well, it would have to be a little bit later than that. Or let's say you ramped and you get to flip Kira as well. It would be like a turn 4, turn 5 Avenger, which isn't like insane. It is good. It's just not insane, especially since you had to sack the rest of your board, assuming it's not defeated already. So all of that doesn't sound that good, but then you consider what this new set is bringing, and it's all about expendable resources that you can sacrifice to get extra cost reduction. If you look at the exploit mechanic in its entirety, it's all about just sacrificing these trash units like these 1/1 battle droids in order to get 2 resources reduced on whatever thing you're playing with exploit. Like Asajj, for example, is a perfect example of this. If you have Asajj, she's a 4 cost here, and I'll pull her up as we're talking about this. She's a 4 cost unit, but she has exploit 2, which means that you can sacrifice 2 units to make her essentially a 0 cost 2/4, which is really quite impressive in certain circumstances. Now, unfortunately for us, this consolidation of power requires you to play off the power of the unit, so it's not quite exploit. Like, you can't just give exploit to something, which would have been kind of interesting, because this, even if you are sacrificing all those battle droids, instead of, let's say, sacrificing 2 battle droids to play a 4 resource play, you need to sacrifice 4 battle droids to play a 4 resource play. So this does seem very interesting, and I think it has like some sort of combo potential, or maybe like just some synergy plan. But we do need to see what expendable other resources we could produce that maybe have some additional power. That could be exciting. And the other card we have is Aura Sing. This is a 7 resource aggression ground unit, 7/6 Underworld Bounty Hunter with Overwhelm. And when an enemy ground unit attacks your base, you get to ready Aura Sing. This one looks pretty interesting and is very much something that can go ahead and pop off massively if your opponent's trying to ignore your board. The problem with this card that I see immediately is that it's 7 resources. If this was like a 4 resource play and you got, like, let's say a 5/4 or like a 4/4 or a 4/5 or something like that, this could be exciting. You play this for 4 resources, you get a 4/4, your opponent tries to ignore you and attack the base, you get to immediately attack with that 4/4. That's pretty solid. The problem with this is if it's at 7 resources, you play this, let's say, on turn 6, your opponent can potentially just go ahead and kill you at that point with a single attack, because you've probably had a lot of damage on them if they're the type of deck that wants to ignore your units. If they're not, and they're trying to get to them later stages of the game, then they could probably just kill your units and they're fine with it and ignore this ability. And mind you, this only affects ground units on your opponent's side, and so you're really going to have to make sure that this is a matchup where you can even ready her. On the other hand, she is a 7/6 Overwhelm, but that is the same stat line as a Wrecker, which is 1 resource cheaper than Aura Sing. So you really need to be able to get this ability triggered in order for this to actually have any impact. Because you also have, in Villainy, Maul, who's a 7/6 Overwhelm Ambusher with Underworld as its tag. So you really, really want to be getting that enemy ground unit attacks your base, ready this unit trigger. And I just don't know if 7 resources is a great spot for that, because of the fact that it's probably already game over. They're able to ignore your base. Like, if your opponent sees this unit and they're like, oh, I'll just attack past you, it's probably game over, right? This is supposed to be an attack deterrent and make your opponent think, okay, do I want to hit their base, or do I want to let Aura Sing attack me or my units, or do I want to attack Aura Sing or one of their other units? And early on in the game, that's a really tough decision to make, especially if you're fighting like Sabine Green, and your Sabine Green goes Battlefield Marine into like Fighters for Freedom, and then on turn 3, you're deploying Aura Sing, and they're like, well, if she's like a 4/4, then I have to like trade both units, and if I bypass her and attack the base, they get to immediately ready Aura Sing, and now they have a 4/4 that's killed my Fighters for Freedom and leaves behind a 4/1 body. Like, that is amazing. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So I'm not really high on Aura Sing. I don't really see her being all that applicable, even though she is an aggression, which is a combination that could be interesting if you're not playing heroism. Because again, even though you don't necessarily want the Wrecker when played ability all that time, you're still going to 7/6 body for 1 less cheaper resource. And yes, this one has the Underworld Bounty Hunter tag, but does that really matter when you're playing heroism? Not generally. So yeah, this doesn't seem like it will see play at all in heroism, unless you're able to trigger that ability, and I just don't think you will. And in Villainy, maybe, but there's not really that many great Villainy decks, and or Villainy aggression decks, I should say. So I don't really know if this has a place at all. But that's going to kind of wrap up our spoilers and our little brief discussion about Twilight of the Republic. Hopefully you all are excited. I've had a ton of questions. I'll be keeping up on, of course, all the news that comes in. I am expecting there to be a lot of news about this, because the spoilers for set 2, because that's the only thing we have to go off of, came out in comparison the same amount of time that set 2 was from release as this set is from release as well. So I'm expecting to see more spoilers pop up as we go further, and I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, this week I thought maybe on Monday we would start to see daily spoilers, but it might be, coming Monday. Of course, I don't know at the end of the day because we've only had one set, but I'm expecting more and more spoilers as we go deeper and deeper into the, I guess, time between this spoiler and the set actual release. I'm excited. I'm excited to see Ahsoka. I'm excited to see and recall all my knowledge about the Clone Wars TV series. It's one of my favorite series. I'm excited to see that they, dropped in some kind of niche scenes, but like really meaningful. Like this scene right here with Waxer and Boyle. That one is like a scene that just stays with you if you're an enjoyer of the Clone Wars TV series. So I'm really excited to see images like that come up. Same things with like the Dathomir. Again, I think this is Dathomir. Could be another scene, but that backdrop really looks like Dathomir to me. And Satine and Ahsoka and all that stuff. It's just exciting to see like just straight up episodes symbolized in a single card. That's just super exciting. So hopefully you all are as excited as I am. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all for the next one.